Okay, and I'm gonna admit Katie now. She's here in the waiting room.
Okay.
So once we see Katie pop up, we are recording on Zoom and we're live on Facebook.
All right. Welcome back, Katie.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was looking at the wrong email account too. So then Dane called me and was like, "We're doing this."
Problem. Okay,
Good to see you all again without.
all right, so let's try again. This is the meeting of the Village of Shorewood Hills Pool Committee. It's Monday, November 3rd. The time is now 6:01. We're resuming our Zoom chat after the interruption. So where we left off, I think, Brian, you had finished your public comments, had you not?
I had, and it sounded like someone was trying to address a question to me when we were interrupted.
Yes. Did someone have a
Oh, I'm
question?
sorry. That was me, Brian Chrissy. I was just asking for the spelling of your last name. It just says Brian Yu on here.
Ah, yeah, it's UTSCHIG. We can blame a bunch of Bavarian Czech farmers for that. Again, that's UTSCHIG. And I'm 3414 Lake Mendota Drive, Chrissy.
Okay, thank you so much, Brian.
You're very welcome.
So Chrissy, I'm a little hesitant to ask, but are there any more public comments? That can't be verified?
Sorry, Mark. Yes, agreed.
It may just be me and my plea for a renovation. I unfortunately need to make it to another board meeting that I'm on that's just starting right now. So I'm going to need to drop. I won't be able to listen to the rest of you deliberate, but I did want to stop in and make the comment while I still could. Thanks,
Okay.
everybody.
Thank you, Brian.
Okay, well, let's move on with the meeting then. Um, so we're going to end the public comment period. Dane, are you there with your manager's report?
I am. I'm here. So I don't have too much to talk about in the pool manager's report. Only thing I'll just mention that shade structure for the east end of the pool that is going up probably in the next few weeks here. So Daniels Construction is going to be the company that's doing the installation and assembly for that. So I've just been kind of working on all the details for that. So um, they're doing that project will take place. There's some fence we have to roll back and some sound wire we have to put in back in after that. But that'll go in that east end, kind of replacing that structure that was there with the legs previously. That's the side that we like operate clerk of course for swim meets on stuff like that. Um, just to give some familiarity to that. Other than that, I will just mention because it's not an agenda item. Just an update on the membership software stuff. So I did meet with more companies, like I said. Um, at least kind of the conclusion I've come to, at least tentatively, is just that there's a lot of softwares out there. They could be better, they may not, but either way, kind of the transition process to them would definitely be kind of a barrier, I guess, or it would take a lot of time. And it's just a matter of while there is definitely some inconsistencies or areas of concern with the current software, I think it's just worth taking a little bit more time with our current software to see where I can work some stuff out because there is parts of it overall that do work well for us or that have already had time contributed towards getting them set up previously. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. So with the membership software then separately is our payment processor. And what I am planning to do is hoping to get that changed to basically when we first joined this software, they did not have their own payment processor system. It's like a separate company. So we've been using them for the past few years. And our fees and whatnot that we pay are pretty high with them. So then now the company that we use as our membership software, they talked to me, and they've kind of presented to me their current payment processor. They now have their own. So they gave me the rundown with that. I had a few meetings with them. So I am planning to transition to that here at some point. I'll work out the details with the rest of the staff at Village Hall, but we'll get some different card terminals and stuff with that too. Um, and then so basically just to update where we're at in terms of this next year, we are paying the exact amount that we paid the last 5 years. We will be paying that again this year, not anything higher than that. So we're at that same rate. And then um, they're giving me like a free hour of like more in-depth consulting with their team. So obviously I can go to their support services anytime, but then they have more in-depth consulting. So I kind of have a list of items that were all involving the things we kind of want to address or have been barriers for us. And I'll be talking those over with them. So that's that.
Any questions on any of that, or just generalized questions for Dane? I have one, Dane. Do you think that they may be able to improve the interface with our accounting system? I know that was an issue the last couple of years, making it just hard for the exchange data.
Yeah, I think I'll know more after the consulting with them, more specifically in terms of exactly like what Julie's looking for on her end in terms of like the reports.
Mhm.
So I'll know a little bit more, like if we can get to a better spot with that, or not, after that. But other than that, I think at least initially that payment processor change that could help a little bit, somewhat. But there is some very specific reports I know Julie wants that I think talking with them more in depthly, I'll have a better idea on what we can kind of do to fix that end of it. So.
Great, thank you. Okay, if there are no other questions for Dane, let's move on to discussion possible action on the 2026 rates, pool memberships, passes, and program fees. Dane, you're up again.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll just keep this pretty brief. Chrissy, I did just send the request to share my screen for this, so I don't know if you can accept that then.
I will allow you to, Dane.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah, so this is just can everybody see the document then?
Yes.
Yeah, so this was in the packet. So basically, what this just goes over is the membership rates and then like the fee schedule for 2026. So basically, all we're looking to do is the reason why this meeting is a special meeting is just based on timelines. So typically, the membership rates and program fees, we've kind of approved them in January. But the operational budget for the pool is finalized in November. It's obviously worked on from August through the end of October, but then it's finalized in November. So the goal, I guess, for the future and kind of in this circumstance too, is to kind of finalize these rates a little bit sooner going forward. That way we can make changes within our operational budget planning. Um, and then those changes can be actually like reflected in the budget rather than we budget for one thing now and then it changes in January, but we can't change the budget. So I think the goal for next year would probably be start discussing what our rates could look like in June sometime next year, something like that. But that can be ironed out another time. So basically, all we're doing now is the 2026 rates you'll see on this right side. These of what we have budgeted for so far. So the goal is to just see if we need to make any changes to those or not. That way we can get those done before the budget is finalized then. So yeah, other than that, this is separated into sections. So we have this is program fees. So this is what everything was in 2025, and this is what I've kind of proposed in 2026. And then the same thing down here for membership rates. Everything, this is broken down a little differently, but you'll see this is what the resident rate was in 2025. This is 2026, 25, 26. And then same thing down here with the daily pass category. This is what everything was in 25. and this is what was in 26. So everything in the light gray is a change. Basically the goal with these fees is previously the previous village administrator, she had created a fee schedule for the a couple of years back that the pool was kind of following overall. So that was a pretty good fee schedule. There's some changes. We're not following it completely one to one. But so that I don't have that in this packet. But basically what that proposed was 2 years ago on membership rates, we did a 5% increase. So that was 2 years ago. Last year, just the resident rates went up by 3.5%. So then that schedule again this year, it called for a 3.5%, but just on every single membership type. And then after that, that fee schedule, it really just proposed doing like a 1% increase each year after that. But anyways, the whole goal of that fee schedule is to kind of build a stronger fund balance for the pool going forward, to use to contribute towards projects like our pool building renovation or new building, something like that. So this is the pool operational fund we're talking about. Yeah, that's all I'll mention on that. Basically, the program fees. This is like what you pay per swimmer or diver or per water ballet participant. And this is a 50% increase kind of proposed on here. And then the memberships, like I said, those are just 3.5% per membership type. And then down here, these are kind of split up by passes. I can go into an explanation on like what's decided for what reasons and whatnot. So I'll stop there and can take any questions.
Questions for Dane?
Yeah, I have a couple. So there's a couple darker gray boxes where it says projected 2026 revenue increase. Is that, you're saying then, is that an increase of 19,000, that first one, like 19,870, just based on this top box of swim, dive team, water ballet, etc.? We're saying we're going to net almost 20 grand more with this 50% rate increase in that box. And then below it, there's another projected revenue increase of over $20,000. So are we projecting that from the pool membership increase? It's just broken up. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding. Are we actually saying, and then there's another one. So when we total all of that up, that's how you get to the, I guess it's like almost 40K at the bottom. Am I tracking on that?
Yeah, so this is separate. But yes, these three are just for the individual categories. So this would be the revenue increase for the swim, dive, ballet. This would be for membership fees. And then this would be for daily passes. So each of those increases applies to a category within the pool budget. So
Yep.
the pool budget right here. So the daily passes, that goes to this number here, the memberships, that goes to this number here, and then the swim and dive fees, that goes to this number here.
Okay. And when you're projecting that, are you basing that off of an average of, like for the daily passes, let's just take that, right? How are you calculating what we might project there? Are you averaging the last 3 years of resident day passes purchased or something to get to how many $9 passes we think we're going to have in 2026? How are you arriving there?
So they basically Julie provided me with the like end of what's the word, the the end of year totals for what was made, the finalized end of year. So like in this case the end of year um was 39,630. And then it's just multiplying that by 50%. And that gives you this number. So I had spent some additional time doing it a different route where like I was literally comparing sales numbers. Like, okay, we like 80 people signed up for swim team, stuff like that. But those were not correct versus the end of year total that the village accounting software is giving them. That is accurate. So basically in this case, it's a 50% increase to that gives you this, and then like down here, a 3.5% increase to the end of year gives you that.
I see.
Um, yeah, that's yeah.
Okay. And I think I would like to understand a little bit more why we are leveraging like a 50% increase on the things in the top box versus only a 3.5% flat increase across the board here for like the membership
Yeah,
types.
the short answer is the memberships. I was definitely following the previous schedule that had been created. And I just kind of preferred to stick to that because it's not an insanely high jump either. But the swim and dive ones, those were on my end. That was just kind of recognizing where we were at. So like these are expenses for swim and dive ballet programs. So the basically what we're spending on those programs is about 18,000, but then if you factor in the coaching salaries, and then plus the benefits attached to those, so then it ends up being about 61,000. So we were only making about 39,630 off of those programs, but our expenses for them are much higher. So the intention then with raising the rates per individual for those programs is to get the revenue up to a point that is closer to our total expenses.
I see. Okay, that's very helpful. And then last question for me, and then I'll turn it over to other members. Have we vetted these against any of the other local pools, just looking at kind of like a consideration set here of, what a membership costs at, Hill Farms or something. Um, just to see how where are we landing there in terms of kind of local pools and other maybe I don't know if that's the kind of thing that someone would go to a different pool for, but have we done any kind of competitive analysis on this?
Yeah, so the membership rates this year specifically, I have not. The past other 2 years, like the previous village administrator, she had like a detailed report done on like what each pool is selling membership wise. So I believe 2 years ago they used a lot of that comparison to decide on that 5% jump back then. So. I guess on the membership rate specifically, this is just really following where we were already at and what we're increasing them. On the program fees, specifically talking about swim team and dive team, looked at I couldn't find the answers to every single pool, but I looked at least 6 or 7 of them, and I wrote them down. And we are probably at the ones I found, we are the lowest. So we were at 75 per swimmer and 75 per diver. Most of the other pools I found were in the 120 plus range. For that, there was one pool I found that was under 100 still. So in that category, I guess we are lower than I even knew, um, on that side of it. And then some pools also have like dual rates for if somebody does swim and dive, and then ballet, I did not get a chance to do comparisons on. But most of it on this end was also a judgment on what I thought sounded reasonable to, in terms of increasing compared to these other pools that are much higher than us on program fees. So
Okay. One request is if we could include that when it gets to the board level
okay.
to approve these kinds of rate increases, because I do think a 50% jump, we need to stand by those numbers, and I think really showcase like the logical thinking behind why, because that is a substantial increase. It could be warranted, like you're saying, but I do think we need some more data to suggest that.
Okay. Yeah, and then like an example would just be like Hawks Landing. Um Hawks Landing, they do like 145 for dive. I'm not saying that's a fair comparison to Short at all, but Hawks Landing, theirs is 145 for dive, 165 for swim, and then if somebody was doing both, it was 175. And so in this case too, this 115 number, obviously it follows that that 50% increase, but also I kind of viewed it as on our end, we don't want to overcomplicate what we're selling in terms of having more items. So still keeping it at a point where we could still have it just be swimmer and diver per individual was a goal too.
Any more questions, Kate, or should we move on to the other members? You're good. Any other questions for Dane on either the fee schedule or Dane, were you going to talk about the budget separately?
Yeah, I don't have, I guess, too much to talk on that. I will just note on the down here on this daily passes section. Um, so this is set up a little bit differently. So as you'll see, the resident day passes, that's been $6 for a long time. So this is a 50% increase to go up to $9 on that. So that's just per person on that. And then that also then applies to the pool party admission. So instead of somebody paying like $6 per non-member guest, they just pay $9 per non-member guest. And that also then applies to the single guest passes we sell in August. And then with that, then there is a change in terms of like the 5-pack guest passes and then the 3-pack of guest passes. So there's 5 passes in each pack. So it's 15 if you're getting the 3-pack, or it's 5 if you're getting the 1-pack. So those prices have changed a little bit too. You'll note down here there is still some savings on those passes just based on how they're purchased. So like the guest pass pack of 5, it's $5 less than if you just purchased 5 single guest passes. And then the guest pass 3-pack of 5 plus the 1 extra if you got it early enough in May, that's about $40 less than if you were to buy 4 uh, packs of 5 guest passes. So that's how those are set up. The house guest passes do follow what that previous chart kind of charted out, and that was a 50% increase, or sorry, a 10% increase between 24 and 26. So again, this is how these are set up. This is the goal. Overall goal with this is to, especially on the there's the 2 goals like on the program fees, it's to just be able to support the programs more, and you know, understanding that there's higher expenses in the coaching salaries realm in terms of diving, water, ballet, all of that. So kind of supporting that in the future. And then the secondary goal of all of it is to just kind of build a stronger fund balance for the pool overall, with the goal to be able to, you know, use it on things, improving the facility. A lot of the fund balance, as was mentioned, was used on previous projects such as the pool liner and stuff. So.
Other questions for Dane about the proposed program fees or membership fees? I would just echo Kate's remarks about, you know, to the extent you can to get this kind of comparable information I remember the spreadsheet from a year or 2 ago that were put together that just sort of track what the membership fees were at other clubs. And that would be helpful if you could bring that up to date a little bit. I know that it's a little bit of apples and oranges because different pools have different fee structures than the village. So there isn't sometimes a direct comparison, but I think that's always helpful to see. Dane, did you want to make any remarks about the budget, having gone over the fees?
Oops, I'm sorry. I'm on the wrong tab now.
There you go.
So yeah, other than that, I don't think so. I think that was all I had pretty much. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, this is just a lot of work throughout the fall on stuff like this. So, but like I said, that those rates kind of apply to some of these accounts here. Otherwise, I don't have anything too in-depthly to explain on the operational budget unless there's questions. So.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the projected numbers for 2025 end of year. I'm just picking one category, but a large one, the membership fees. We didn't quite, you're not projected to earn $600,000. The number's 595, and we budgeted 630,000. Do you have any insight as to what was going on there? Was it just fewer members than we expected this last year in 2025?
Yeah, as I kind of mentioned, and I'm not 100% sure, but what I ran into is a lot of what I was doing this fall and then even last year was taking our sales numbers per item. So like, oh, we sold, let's say it says we sold 70 family memberships or whatever. So I was taking those sales numbers um and then comparing them to the GL reports from our actual membership software. But what I've been told is that is different than the village's accounting software, which sees the finals of everything. So what could have possibly happened here is the budgeting was done off of the numbers from the membership software and not the actuals that is in the village's accounting software. So that may have resulted in that big difference. I'm not 100% sure. I will say like another category where it was different um, was the wage calculations, um, or was in the pool salaries budget. And that was completely different because we had the work hours per position calculated wrong, or it was outdated. So that one I had a more specific point to. But otherwise, I think could be largely because I was not getting the final number from the village accounting software versus our pool membership software, which does have some inconsistency to it.
Yeah, and that's the question I asked earlier about trying to reconcile between what's coming out of Perfect Mind, what it's reporting in its GL versus how we're recording things in the village accounts. And to the extent we can kind of close the gap between the inconsistencies between the two systems, I think that would be helpful. Okay.
What do you attribute the differences to? Are these people that sign up and then don't end up paying because they decide not to be members, or why would it be such a difference?
Oh, I mean, my only, I mean, so basically this budget number is our guess or what we did the math to determine. So it could very well be there was I forgot to write down I have our total membership from last year. So I have that number. I don't have this year's number right off the top of my head, and I did not write it down when I should have either. Um, I don't think you could attribute a little bit. You could say like, oh, 25 less people or 25 less memberships were bought. That could be a thing. But in this case, I think it would merely, I think it's mostly a math thing on our end where we just didn't calculate something right. And we just got a number that was higher. Now we'll figure that out this year too, because like I said, the total we're plugging in this year is based off of the village's accounting software. And we think we'll be at a more accurate point with this 616 number this year. So
I guess I understand the difference between a budget estimate and the final actual at the end of the season. I'm just curious, why is there such a difference between the accounting software receipts and the registration totals?
I wish I knew. It could be I don't really know. It could be refunds. It could be a number of transactions that we had to go and fix in previously. I guess the answer is it's something we're trying to figure out too. It's not complete. There's not a complete answer to it. I think it could definitely be um, refunds or things that are finalized, and then obviously it's accurate on the villages side, but then in the membership software, because that's not where we're tying out to, it's a different answer. Um, so I think that the specifics on that are unknown completely, but I think it's just a matter of little things like refunds or stuff that's done later that doesn't get correlated by the software, I don't really know.
No, I understand. And these 2025 EOY estimates could be wrong. So, I mean, they're only estimates. So we will get a better handle on this once we close out the year and we get some final numbers and they go through the audit process. But I do think it is something that we need to close the discrepancy between what's reported out of the Perfect Mind GL and what we're recording in the village's accounting system. So I will speak and with Julie on that and follow up. Other questions for Dane on the budget? Before we turn to the issue of the capital improvement projects.
Mark, it looks like Kate has her hand up.
Sorry, okay.
It's okay.
Which was on my, go ahead.
I was just waiting to make sure no other members had questions, but Dane, I just wanted to talk about concession sales. So it looks like there's two categories, tax exempt and regular for some reason, but it looks like we're saying both of those sales will be flat for next year, basically. Can you just unpack that thinking? I mean, that is another revenue source for the pool. So I'm just wondering if we're adjusting any rates on those as well.
Yeah, so we usually like basically the numbers we're putting in here for concessions are more broad. They're not as fine tuned. It's not obviously, there's a bunch of different items and they're all different prices. So my goal in the future is once I figure out a report that can give me that info more in a more simplistic manner, that I can actually put it into an Excel chart and figure that out by item. That will be a little bit more fine-tuned, but otherwise these fall very similar to what our end of year estimates are. And that's why they're kind of just above what our end of year estimate is. But otherwise, the past few years we have been changing the prices, making the menu a little bit more simplistic, getting rid of items we weren't selling well. So that is what we did this year as well. But otherwise, those two accounts, those are just items that have sales tax on them and then don't have sales tax. And they're just in separate accounts. That way it's separated out on the accounting side easier.
So then how should I think about this then, Dane? So this is projected budget for next year. So then are we saying that given inflation and everything, we are not going to be raising rates at all on like sales of chips or something like that?
Yeah, I guess I would say the concessions prices, we do not, I have not so far, we don't really get to adjusting those until like April, May. And so far, I have tried to be very cautious in doing that in terms of keeping things reasonable. I think the overall intended goal of the concession stand is for it to be an amenity of the membership and of the pool. So I think it's a balance of obviously, selling things at rates that are reasonable and enjoyable for the people going to the pool, but they're also realistic then on the financial side. So I think the goal is overall to raise the fund balance and stuff through the other things like the membership and the program fees and the pass fees versus trying to do it through concession sales, which may not be as efficient or just could not be as widely enjoyed with having higher prices on certain items and whatnot that are a little more simpler things to purchase, I guess.
Okay, I'm pushing on that because I think what I'm reacting to is we're applying certain assumptions to all these different categories, and there isn't like a larger theory to the case on, or at least doesn't feel like that to me as I hear you talk about, well, we're raising this thing 50%, we're raising this thing 3.5%. There's no, oh, well, inflation has risen X amount, so we're going to adjust accordingly for the pool, or competitive, analysis of surrounding pools suggests this, and I think there are inherent assumptions in some of that, Dane, that you're making. It could be correct, you know, could be incorrect. We don't know that people wouldn't spend $2 on carrots versus $1, right? We actually, we don't know that. The willingness to pay at the pool, right? You're kind of stuck at the pool. You want carrots, probably going to buy $2, not, you know, and not think about the extra dollar. And so I know, you know, big picture right now, the village is looking at many different ways to bring in new revenue. And so I think I hear you, you know, it's not like we're going to make, you know, $600,000 on selling chips, but I do think we need to look at every single line item carefully. And I guess what I would want is just a little bit more of an overall theory to the case on the pool and why we're raising some things certain, you know, in certain ways and not others. It's just, I want it to be less opinion driven and more fact, you know, based driven, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I can try to make it a little more simplistic, but basically on the program fee side, it's just based off of what our current expenses are. They're way higher than what we are making for revenue. So the goal is to get to a closer point on that. On the membership side, it is to get to a base on the membership side, the goal is really to build a fund balance for the future on projects. So that's with the memberships, and then that's the same with the daily admissions and the memberships. That is building a fund balance for the pool that is lower versus the program fees is keeping up with the expenses for those programs.
Because the flip of that is you could say, well, how could we lower our expenses for some of these programs too? Just, I hear you, but
Yeah.
there's two sides. So,
Yeah, I can try to, I mean, from an operational side, I guess I would say I think we're at a pretty, it depends, like, I mean, there's multiple things you could examine with that. So you could examine salaries, what we're paying people, but then you could examine the actual like expenses, like what, you know, what it costs to run the programs for like, you know, events for the programs, stuff like that. I would say we're at a pretty reasonable spot with that. Like, I don't feel like we're spending money on things for programs that we shouldn't be. Um, I personally get the sense that my employees or just the experience of the program warrants spending even more money in the future. I don't feel that we're at a spot where we are spending money on things that aren't necessarily or could be um, cut off of. That's not to say we need to add a bunch of expenses at all. That's just to say, like, I think our expenses are at a pretty steady rate to what they've been other years. We're not adding new expenses a lot.
Any other questions for Dane on budget or membership fees structure? Dane did include in an email to me a proposed resolution, a motion rather, to the board on the issue of the membership fees and rates, as follows: to recommend to the board approval of the 2026 pool membership rate and fee schedule as presented. Is that a resolution of a motion anyone wishes to make to the board? Doesn't look like it at this time unless I'm missing someone. Okay.
I can either way. I'll plan to include or just get more of those comparisons, like was mentioned, comparing the fees at other pools and the membership rates at other pools. So
I'm
Okay.
happy to make the motion. I'm just not quite sure what verbiage I should use. Like, I move to accept the continuing motion. Is that what it is?
The motion that was suggested is a motion to recommend to the board approval of the 2026 pool membership rate and fees schedule as presented. So is
I'm
that the motion you wish to make, Katie?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Is there a second for that motion? doesn't appear to be the case. So we'll let that motion die and move on to the next issue on the agenda, which is the discussion possible action on the 2026 to 2030 pool capital improvements projects. Dane, want to introduce that topic?
Yep. I just note on the like the rates and the fee schedule. So the intention for that, basically, if we don't proceed on that tonight, all that is if we change these rates going forward, that will not be reflected in the operational budget for this year. So if we do raise any more of these rates to what they're recommended to be or lower, that will show as a change in the operational budget next year, just because I basically the intention was to finalize these ahead of the board meeting. So that gets finalized at the board meeting. So if we do it, a month from now, 2 months from now, whatever, it'll be different than what's in the budget, or it won't be. But these numbers here is what is plugged into the budget, just to clarify.
Yeah, no, I understand that, Dane. I mean, your proposed budget is built on this membership and fee structure. So, and the village board will be presented with the village's overall budget at its regular November meeting. And when it approves that budget, as presumably it will, then that will be essentially approving a fee schedule that underpinned it. So I'm not sure what the basis would be for the pool committee to come back and alter it, but certainly that is possible. Okay, moving on, capital projects.
Yeah, I'll just note on here, trying to figure out what page it was on. Oh, so I got some additional answers on questions that we had mentioned last time. So the first thing that I think that basically what I'm mentioning here is this was just stuff we discussed about finding out more info or doing in the short term. So the first one of those was what a survey, an Alta survey, is, and that's just determining easements or utilities around the pool. And I have not gone too in depth into that at all yet in terms of research. So that was the info I was given on. Basically, it's an Alta survey, and Rainmaker basically said that's recommended to be completed before you ever do like site plan design or expand onto a building. So that was that with that. The other thing on there was, if you remember, there was like the visual aid with the Rainmaker report. Um, One of the changes on there was for like an addition to the front of the pool, where it had like a lift, and then it had newly accessible bathrooms on the second floor. Um, and so I got the individual price on that edition specifically. So that's that number right here. This is kind of the range it could be in. Um, and then one of the things when me and Mark had met with Rainmaker, they had just mentioned like in theory, if you added that expansion onto this building, it's something that could be carried over, depending on design, to a new structure. That's just an idea that they mentioned with it. But that's the price for just that front entrance expansion. And again, this is just like short-term stuff. Um, Other than that, these were questions I asked, and then these are the answers I got. I won't explain them in depthly. But this was like, what are the requirements for needing or not needing an elevator on a second level space? So this is the answer for there on that. I had mainly asked that one because there is some other area pools that are working on like new building projects, and some of the renderings I had seen for those, they had, deck space that did not have elevators to it. It was simply stair accessible. So that's where I asked that question. And then the other one was more so like a storage question. So there's currently emergency exits in the back of each locker room at the pool. And as Rainmaker had suggested in their visual aid, they like had mentioned like, oh, you could turn those into additional storage areas. So basically, the current emergency exits we have to those locker rooms are not like essential. Like they're still the normal exit to the deck. Um, so that was that. I don't think I put anything else on here. The only other one thing I am working on getting more info on was just like if we wanted to do kind of another short-term remedy in terms of adding a bigger pool deck door where that current window is in the center of the lobby. So I'm kind of working on seeing if that'll even be feasible. I think it's just a matter of like, I know there's a lot of electrical stuff there, and then like obviously if it's load bearing or whatever. So I'm that's another idea I'm kind of looking into too. So I think that is that on those updates on that stuff. Um yeah, I think that's all I can talk to. So
Any questions for Dane about the capital projects? One of the things that I noted in the minutes that there seems to be a consensus on the pool committee that to minimize the improvements that are not essential to the pool over the pool building, that is, over the next couple of years in the hope of doing a major renovation or reconstruction of the building. There was and Dane's got it up on the screen now, these higher priority items that I guess Raymaker, Findorf recommended that we consider. Beyond that, there is the issue with the parking lot, which Brian mentioned earlier. There is money, the board did approve a capital spending of about $125,000, I believe, was in the CIP, the capital investment plan for 2026 for recreation pool projects. And beyond that, there may have been, I believe there's also some carryover from capital spending that had been allocated in 2025, but unspent in 2025 and will be available in 2026. So I think the thing is we're going to have to, either Dane will have to do it on his own or the pool committee will have to weigh in as to what sort of improvements the pool committee would like to see made, knowing that or hoping that in a few years there will be a major reconstruction or renovation. So trying to identify what those items might be so that they get priority attention and that we don't overinvest in the facility. The other major issue is, of course, the community center, the community room on the second floor, and what the future of that space will be, which is really more a matter for the board than it is for the pool. The pool uses that space, but not that frequently. It's not been our highest priority. We have used it, but is what the board imagines they want to see in that space going forward. So this is going to be sort of a partnership between the pool committee and the board going back and forth about what the future of that building is. But I think if we really want to move this process along, we really do need to think about what the process should be of putting together a major renovation. There is, as I say, money in the budget to do some further planning. We've already done phase one of the Rainmaker report and partially phase two, which involved conceptual design of what a new facility might look like. But that assignment has done. And so the question is, how would the pool committee like to proceed from here in terms of the planning process for a major renovation going forward? The timing of that will obviously be subject to all the other priorities that the village has in terms of capital expenditures. But I think we shouldn't get held up as a committee on that, but we need to focus on what our preferred timeline is and what our preferred process is. So I'll stop there and take any comments, questions from the members, suggestions as to how to move this process forward.
Before we maybe go to that, I just have a question about this sheet you're sharing now. One of the items here marked as a now priority is the where'd it go? The lights, the exterior lighting on the update building exterior lighting. And it's the largest ticket item on this short list of high priority items in green. And I'm curious, is there like a safety concern or an immediate issue with the exterior lighting, or what lighting are we talking about? And is that something that really would need to be done now?
Yeah, so that is Rainmaker's estimate on that. And I think we can basically, I labeled this down here as an operational fix. So basically what I think we'll end up doing on that is I don't think it's a safety matter at all. It's just a mere matter of the lights we currently have on the exterior are either burnt out or a little out of date. So my plan for this year is simply, I think it can be an operational expense. So I don't think it's anything major, but just working with Terry, having Hill Electric come in, and then just getting those lights that are already existing at those points, getting them updated to LEDs. So nothing more specific than that. Obviously, if we meet with Hill Electric and then we find out it's some astronomical cost, then that might be a different decision to where we just say, hey, we want to wait until it's a new facility. But on the lights, that was just more a cosmetic thing. And that so I guess that's a different level of intensity than some of these other ones could be. So,
Dane, it might be good, along the line of Brian's concern earlier in the meeting, that when we go through a major reconstruction or replacement, that the firm will end up ruining the parking lot. And you may want to talk to Brian Berquist about that. I don't know whether that can be avoided somehow through careful construction management, so we maintain the integrity of the lot. I know we reconstructed the worst section, but the larger section is still to be done. There's money available to it, but clearly we don't want to throw good money after bad if it's going to get ripped up in 2 or 3 years. So that is something to be considered.
yeah, I'll look into that.
Yeah.
I think it's a good question. I think that there could probably be workarounds to that. But I think it's more so with the parking lot. It's just a matter of, okay, we reconstructed this one section. We want to keep them at equal timelines in terms of like how they exist in the future. I believe the condition it was about 20 to 30 years was the estimate on the part we got reconstructed, about how long that will last. So keeping the other sections of it on that same time frame would be the goal. But it's just I guess it's a question of there's two sections here. We have the 47,000 that is left over, that is being borrowed by the pool, and that was assigned to planning. So if there's more leeway in terms of what we can do with that, it could definitely be viewed as, okay, maybe we want to focus that towards the parking lot a little bit, if that can be reconfigured, because that is money the pool itself will be paying back over time, versus the 125,000 that is being borrowed this year. That is general fund debt. So I guess on the parking lot side, it's just a matter of like, I guess what everyone thinks we should kind of proceed towards. We have been recommended to get to Town and Country Engineering. They said you should have a bid in on the parking lot stuff specifically no later than February, if we're looking to get it done this year ahead of the pool season. And I'm sorry, I should have included it in this packet. But we do have a visual aid from them that breaks down the three remaining sections of the parking lot. So the the total of the sections remaining is about $90,000. But within that, it can be split up again into other sections that have a lower price tag. So I guess it's just a matter of direction in terms of what how we're spending on certain things and what I should look to prioritize. I think the building's kind of a unique question because I don't know how much we're talking planning. I don't really have a realistic understanding of how much planning costs. Like, are we going to get done with every single part of planning we need to do and it's only $50,000? Or is it way more than that? So on the planning end, that's kind of the question there. And then basically there's a couple limited things I could see if we're planning to start from scratch on a different building. There's like a couple things that would be worth improving in the short term. So obviously, I think the goal that's been communicated is we want to be efficient and we want to be quick in getting to a new facility or understanding that that's a priority. Um, so
Okay, any other questions for Dana? Dana, you've had your hand up.
Yeah, I kind of want to go back to the big picture and maybe bookend this with Brian's opening statements. I'm still trying to, and this part might just be my ignorance in understanding the process, but I feel like we keep punting the conversation about building a new building down the road. And I'm trying to figure out, how do we make that future goal a now goal? Like, what do we need to present to the board to say, we need a new building, we want a new building, give us the funds to build a new building? Because I just feel like we keep assuming it's getting pushed out, and I'm trying to figure out how to close the gap between, I think, what we all see us needing now and some 3 or 4 arbitrarily long timeline until we get to that point. So what is that process for us to actually move that forward and say, no, we actually need a new building. Like, we should be spending money on this and pushing that to the board.
Yeah, I'll only speak for myself rather than for the board, but I would say the thing that's sort of missing for me is what's the planning process look like? I mean, I think there's a good bit of support among individual trustees for doing something with the facility.
Hmm.
Somebody has to take the lead in terms of setting forth a plan to get that done and what the steps are in that process.
Is
And
that just like a volunteer has to come forward and just do, I mean, that sounds like something we should invest in. No one's just going to volunteer to put together a pool plan. So then maybe my question turns, okay, then what do we do to get that in place?
right. Well, I think the Raymaker report was the first step in that direction.
Mhm.
One thing we could do is go back to Raymaker and say, thank you for pointing out all the deficiencies in the building and giving us some conceptual design about how that building might be renovated or replaced. But I think it would be a matter of going back to them and asking for more specifics about what the actual process of doing that looks like, and kind of just laying it out on a timeline and say, here are the major steps in the process. I mean, they've gone through this with other pools. So, whether you run out day one and you hire an architect, is that where the process begins? Or does it typically begin with just residents in a community getting together and saying what they'd like to see in that facility before you even bring in somebody from the outside? So for me, it would be helpful to get Raymaker's perspective on that, process-wise, because I think it's getting the specifics before the board that will really move the process forward. I think they understand the need for the new facility and the desire for it. the board is obviously has other capital spending priorities as well. That's an issue. But for me, the first step is just what does the timeline look like and what are the milestones in the process? Um,
So right now we would need to invest more money in planning before we know that we will get more money to actually build the building.
Yeah, there there is money in the budget, continue the planning process. But I guess the first thing I would do is want to talk to somebody like Raymaker and say, okay, there now seems to be a building consensus that we want to do a major renovation or we want to do a replacement. And what is their suggestion for how that process moves forward? Because I don't really know how this works in communities, whether they bring in the experts first or whether they first hold forums in the community to get a sense of what is it that the community wants before even bringing in people with the planning expertise. So that's my suggestion, but maybe Kate, you have other thoughts?
Dana, did you have anything else?
No, thanks. I think
Okay.
I think that all makes sense. I'm just kind of like, I don't want to continue to assume a new building is 3 or 4 years out, because I think that can kind of go on in perpetuity. So at some point we need to say, like, not 3 or 4 years out, 2 years out, 1 year out. It's happening next year. And I'm just trying to figure out how do we put together the plan to get there, or what is the very next step we have to do and who's accountable for doing it. Because I feel like it's hard in this, census-based volunteer space, to not really understand, like, who really is responsible for moving that forward.
I mean, sorry. You can go, Kate. I'm sorry.
Oh, well, I guess to that point then, is it possible, because this is, possible action on the agenda tonight, would it make sense to make a motion to authorize Dane to reach out to Raymaker if we think that's the right next step to, engage with them in a consulting fashion up to X amount or something, so that we can get that understanding from them? Would it make sense to do something like that? Because I also have a very strong point of view on this big picture, and I think for me, so Mark, the meeting that you were absent from, it was very clear in that meeting that, and I don't want to speak for other committee members, so please speak up now if I'm mischaracterizing anything, but I do think that it is a unanimous feeling on the pool committee that it is time for that building to go away. And what we don't know is it a complete demolition? Could we maintain some of the walls or any structural basement mechanics, but overall it needs to be completely reimagined. And so in my opinion, I would love to break ground on that in September after the pool closes of this coming year. If that is not possible because of timelines and consensus building between our community and membership that attends the pool, for me, at a minimum, then we do it after the following pool season. But that is like as far out as I am willing to go, because I think we are in a dire need to upgrade those facilities. And so that is my perspective. I would love to break ground September of 2026, and I am willing to work quickly to do that. I think we do not want to move too fast given what happened with Logic and the discussions there. But I think that I wanted the pool committee to know that myself and Carol, another trustee, we are getting ready to present to the board a workshop conversation with members and residents to start a broader facilities conversation, because I think a challenge here is the community center above the pool as well. I do not want that to be a blocker on this work. And I think we can figure out a way, because that's part of a big Rubik's Cube here that we're solving as a broader village. Does the community center stay at the pool, or do we decouple that and move that to a different location that might make more sense for residents and others that might want to rent that kind of space for whatever event they're trying to have? And so we do need to have that conversation, but I think that is not a blocker to kick tick off some of the things we know we want to have in any future pool facility. And so, that's where I'm at. I want this to move as quickly as possible, and I'm willing to work with you, Dane, on that, and make sure we hit the right timeline. But Mark, I also agree. I think if looking at Rainmaker and saying, look, is the first step here hiring an architect to come in and really explain to us, we can keep the basement as is. This is a structural wall, like what are the next steps here to get this ball rolling? Because we can also then parallel path that with some research at other pool facilities. I know Katie sent around a beautiful facility in Northern California. We could look at, just general, who did, what is it, River, someone, what's the pool? I'm blanking on the name right now that was just
Ridgewood.
redone. Ridgewood, thank you. Whoever did Ridgewood, like I think we can look locally too at some of these, and we probably want to get like, a handful of bids on the project once we have architectural plans so we can start to see. And I think at that point, then we can also decide on the parking lot issue. I think that's something we can just table for now, honestly, because I don't know enough about this. Maybe we could build it and it wouldn't get destroyed, but logic suggests that it might, with the huge machinery coming in. So I do think that that's like something we should just wait on a little bit. As other things come into view, we'll be able to make that call, I think, as a committee. But that's where I am on this. I would love to get a motion on the table to, authorize Dane to move forward with Rainmaker and, get some of this information so that at our next meeting, we could actually understand, okay, is the next step, let's go hire an architect. Awesome. Who do we want to go hire as an architect? What are, or do we put an RFP out there and then start to gather in, bids on that? Like, I think we need to start moving this along, because whether it happens next fall or the following fall, that planning needs to start now, I think.
And Kate, not even sure that we'll need a motion on this. I think it's fine for just to let Dane know that we'd like to have that conversation. I'd be happy to join you, Dane, in having that conversation with Rainmaker, or Kate, if you want to be part of that as well, and speak directly to them. But I do think having this sense of what the timetable and what the milestones are from somebody who's experienced and gone through these renovations, replacements in the past, and just to kind of get that set forth and share that with the board. I also appreciate, Kate, that focusing on the community center aspect of this, because the community center and the pool are joined at the hip right now, and it's very hard to move one forward without the other coming along as well, at least until such time as the community decides it wants to separate the two physically. But if they're going to remain in the same location, and I could see lots of reasons why that might be the case, then we have to find a way to move forward together on this. So I think it's fine. I think, Dane, if you'll reach out to Rainmaker and let him know that we'd like to have the conversation, let me know. I'd be happy to join in it as well. And Kate, if you would like as well, we'll try to arrange that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be great. I'm happy to. Thanks.
Yeah, I think that's the general like next step on the pool side is an architectural plan. So I think Rainmaker, they're like consulting, but I think they are also like they're an architecture firm. So they in this first phase they were it was consulting in a report, but I think they basically in the RFP we submitted to them, the second phase of it was an architectural plan. So I think the next phase after that to go to an RFP would be the actual construction of the project. So yeah, I guess in the short term, I guess just a question of direction in terms of funding, and then I guess going back to the parking lot, because like I said, there is sections to the parking lot. There is a portion of this where the parking lot, like we have areas that are filling up with water, and they need to be redone in a way that can fix drainage. And that's just one section. The other sections are more so they're fine, they're just in rougher condition. We've addressed the actual main problem of the lot. So again, I think there's just the question here is we have the two separate funding mechanisms. It's like, what do we want to contribute towards what? So I can go get more information on my end from Village Hall in terms of like what we can do, because there is a side to it where it's like the 47,000 we have left, that's going to be paid off by the pool. So maybe that makes more sense to put towards things like the parking lot. But as it was planned for planning. So I guess I don't know if there's an answer to that tonight. It's just, what is our goal going forward with the two separate funding mechanisms? But yeah, I can, I think that we can do the architectural side of it. I just don't know what the other end of that is, though. I know there's been cases previously, Mark, you can speak to it, where that it has gotten to the point of a project being proposed and fully designed out. Um, about like I think it was about 2010, Mark had mentioned, where they had a full plan for renovation to that building and the area around it and a restructuring of it all, but then they never went through with it too. So I also we don't want to go down the path of, we do a full architectural plan and everything, and then there's stuff that doesn't allow us to proceed on that. But that's out of our control a little bit too, I guess.
Yeah, I don't, from my perspective, I don't think we're hiring an architect right now. What we want is a sense of the timeline and the milestones and what are the things that an architect would want to know before they were engaged in this process, because that's on us, the gathering information from the community, from the pool community, from the village at large, as to what it wants in that facility before you even sit down with the architect. And we'll just have to kind of work through that process, both as a committee and as a board. But for right now, let's just, you and I sit down with Rainmaker and see if they can help us draft that kind of timeline. And I think that will be helpful as a first step in getting this process going. I think that's pretty much
Jesse has a
Jesse has
question.
his hand up. Yeah.
Just sorry, I know it's getting late, but I just want to I'll lend my support to that plan. Like, yeah, I'd love to go back to Rainmaker and get this ball rolling here. At least find out more information, and we can move forward from there. I did have one question too. Is there's all this talk of the parking lot today, and I don't know where it's coming from. Like when I look at that, I guess I'm looking at them on this screen. This priority list of improvements. It's not even on there as like a higher priority item to do. I don't understand what I would love to see us fix the leaky roof
It is
before
on
we
there.
before we make
The
a parking lot smoother and I don't know, just the parking lot seems like the least of our concerns. I don't know why that's we keep talking about a parking lot because we just did some work on it, and yeah, like we've talked about, it's likely going to get trampled by machinery if we do a larger renovation. And
I think ultimately, and Jesse, I'm just kind of curious, can it wait a year? Like, can it wait a year till we know the bigger picture? Or are there things that are like going to cause further damage if we don't do them and bigger bills for some reason? That's
the timeline on the parking lot was basically there was the northwest section that was just destroyed and falling apart. So that was done. The other sections, I think where we're at is it's more so there was expressed interest in making sure it was a cohesive project in terms of like, okay, one section isn't light years ahead of another or light years behind another. I guess personal opinion wise, like I said, on the parking lot sections, there's one section that fills up with water and it's very noticeable and in the way. There's other sections that are in fair condition, but they're not great. So the only things on here then on that list about the parking lot are about restriping the stalls and the sign height. So those were just viewed as a part of a project. But the parking lot was a previous conversation that had started, and it's just a matter of, you know, not having one section that's light years behind another. But I don't necessarily think that's a problem either. Um, there is parts of it that need to be addressed, I would say.
I think it's fair to say that the parking lot will not be addressed until we understand the context of the decision with regard to renovating the facility and the impact on that space. So that'll have to just go along. And we'll have to have the conversation with Brian Berquist about the parking lot. At the same time, we're talking to Raymaker about the timeline and the milestones for the renovation of the facility, and it'll all have to move together at the same time, as well as the dialogue about the community center and the need for the community center within the village. All those conversations kind of have to proceed simultaneously or somewhat along the same track. Kate, you have your hand up.
Yeah, just two quick things. So, Dane, just to kind of answer your question too about what we may need to invest in for this summer, I would look at this right now as like a 1 year. What is a minimum viable for this coming summer? Like, literally, are there safety hazards? Are wires hanging out? Is a toilet not functioning? Like, that is how I think we should prioritize spending money. Unfortunately, I think like a new door opening out to the deck, like, not worth it right now, in my opinion, to spend, even if it's $5,000 on that, you know, because we're going to tear the whole thing down. So I would look at it like, literally, what do we need to do this summer to keep the lights on and people who are paying these membership fees happy for one more summer? So that's just thing one. And thing two is I would like us to have a December meeting with the answers from Raymaker, you know, a suggested timeline, a next step, and a discussion around, okay, if the next step really is hiring an architect, how do we do that? Do we hire, are we hiring Raymaker to do that? Do we also RFP for something like that? And I would like a December meeting where we have an action where we actually, you know, launch that next phase so that we're not going to be kicking the can down here, you know, into the new year. So those are just two final thoughts I have on that.
Yeah, we'll just have to contact Raymaker and find out what their availability is in terms of meeting soon. I don't think we're going to try to hold a regular meeting in November that is right in the middle of the Christmas holidays between Christmas and New Year's, which would be our regular meeting. But perhaps if Raymaker is available earlier, we could move up our meeting to mid-December and avoid the holiday and still be able to have the conversation with some information from them. So if Dane, if you'll reach out to them tomorrow and see what their availability might be to sit down with on something like this. And frankly, I don't think it should take them all that long to put it together, given their experience in terms of putting a timeline and milestones down on paper. But we'll make a phone call and see what happens.
Yeah, did you and then I guess was there anything else specifically you were wondering on the membership fees or the fee schedule outside of just comparisons to other pools? Was there any other info I should gather on that for the future?
I would just maybe suggest that we look at any expected salary increases. I know like there's so much talk of wage inflation these last few years, and to make sure that your budgets for the membership dues are reflecting reasonable expenses for wages.
Yeah, that's factored in. So I've already planned out the wage scale is planned out, and all those increases are factored into the salaries category on the operational budget, and that's the hourly positions and the salaried positions. Though all those increases or changes are included in the math for those. So, like under like the program fees one, the estimated expenses that I'll just note here. This number is estimated expenses. So like for coaching positions, obviously it's a little rough because it's like we don't know how many people we're going to hire in November. We'll know more about that um, in the spring. So that's those are salaried positions. But for the hourly positions, then all of those, that number is correctly budgeted in this section right here, this pool salaries line. This number reflects any changes we would make to salaries or hourly positions.
Dana?
Dana?
Yeah, I just I think this is kind of speaks to the motion that was made earlier that didn't carry, but I did just want to mention, I think is it strange or is it normal? Is this something legitimate to ask that there's just some sort of narrative that goes along with the budget that speaks to the why behind things? I think that was my biggest concern as we were discussing it earlier is, yeah, Sharon had this plan to do these things, but we're losing that narrative over time. And maybe that narrative isn't even what we want anymore. And so I think that justification that we were talking about of how we're increasing prices or what's being increased, I think the narrative behind that would actually be kind of helpful as like a single page that gets delivered with the budget. So, or, that budget spreadsheet that you were showing. And I think that would sit better with me too, as someone who's sitting here and getting to look at this data over and over. As a pool committee member, I feel accountable for being able to explain it to community members. And so that would be helpful for me.
Yeah, along with that would include that comparison of, other pools or similar sized pools and their rates. I know the rates are hard to compare sometimes because some things are rolled in some programs, but I think we can extrapolate pretty well.
Yeah, I'll see what I can find. Like I said, we have detailed reports that are from like other years about what other pools were charging. So like I said, for like the program fees, I was able to find most of those. So I don't know if I'll be able to find every single one. And then that I guess applies to the membership rates. Like I'll try to see what I can find. But it's also realistically like I might be able to see what people charged in 25, but some of them I definitely won't be able to figure out what they're planning to charge in 26, nor would they probably tell me. So I'll just see what I can put together as best as possible, but otherwise I'll try to give it a good explain what the why is in the explanation. So
Yeah, I think even the 25 rates would be helpful. And we can go from there. And hopefully that information is relatively easily available. Any other thoughts from committee members and guidance? If not, future agenda items, well, I think we've talked about a number of them tonight already. So Dane will reach out to Rainmaker. We'll try to get that meeting set up. And as soon as we can get a timeline or milestones or whatever guidance they can provide us, we'll see about scheduling other meeting, avoiding the holidays. If need be, we'll do it the first of next year, if that's what it takes to get the data together. Anything else before we adjourn for this evening? No? Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn from someone? Care to make the motion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Dana. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand or say aye. We're
Aye.
done. Thanks very much, Dane. Thanks all the members.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Dane.
Thank
you, everyone.
you.
The conversation.
We'll hear from you. We will reach out to you soon.
Thanks. Bye.
Yeah, okay.